I want to share my earliest memories of our two keynote speakers today. Those of you who know me know that I arrived in Israel directly by way of the Young Judea youth movement. Young Judea was at that time the youth movement of Hadassah, but sponsored by Hadassah. We were independent, and we were active in promoting Zionist ideals and Jewish ideals. And the two live issues then were the aftermath of the Yom Kippur War and the Soviet Jewry movement trying to help release Soviet Jewry and free Soviet Jewry. And Dr. Troy Giltroy and I both grew up on different sides of the border between New York City and Nassau County on Long Island. And we were both in Young Judea, and we were both at many of the rallies to try and bring our other speaker, Natan Sharansky, to the land of Israel. And for me, it's unthinkable that this young boy who was 15 or 16 years old in 1973, 1974 at these rallies with hundreds of thousands of people on the streets of New York in front of the United Nations and the Soviet embassy would be in the position that I would be introducing the next speaker, who really is one of the people in the world who truly need no introduction as minister, dissident, activist, former head of the Jewish Agency, Natan Sharansky.
Okay, no, I'll say a number of comments, and then I'll ask Gil to present his PowerPoint, and then, if necessary, we'll have some discussion. But I want to say two things. First of all, I want to explain what role land of Israel played in my life. So I was absolutely assimilated Soviet Jew. I was born in the place called then Donetsk, which today is the center of the war between Russia and Ukraine. But in those days, nobody could even think about it. It was all one Soviet empire with hundreds of nationalities, and in the idea of your parents is written nationality, and didn't matter what was written, Russian, Ukrainian, Georgian, it doesn't matter. The only thing which mattered is if it was Jewish, because there was nothing Jewish in our life, no religion, no language, no tradition, no knowledge about any holidays, no Brit Milah, no Bar Mitzvah, zero. The only Jewish thing which was anti-Semitism. A lot of anti-Semitism, and even the idea of your parents written, Jew is like you are born with such a disease called Jew, and you have to know how to survive in spite of this disease, and the way of survival was to be the best in your profession, or in physics, or in mathematics, or in chess, whatever. That is the way how we Jews survive. So there was nothing positive in it. You are not going to fight for anything because your only aim is survival in spite of anti-Semitism. And that's all. And that was empire. You knew that you are not supposed to say things which are not permitted to say, and not to try to get the book which is not permitted, only to survive. And when it all changed, when after the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel entered our life very powerful, because all the world is looking on you and saying how you Jews did it. And you understand whether you want or not, but all this world connects you to what is happening in that small country, not our big Russian proud empire, but some small piece of land called Israel. And there miracles are happening, and this small Israel is defeating the army equipped with best Soviet weapons. And you want to know what it means, why the world connects you to this land. And that's how we start in the underground to read the books about ourselves, the books which were brought by tourists about our history, about the history of Zionism, and suddenly you realize that if you make some switch in your mind, your history will begin not from the Great October Revolution, from Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. It starts from thousands and thousands of years ago, from Exodus from Egypt, and goes to King David and to Maccabees, and it's such an exciting, interesting history, and it all can be yours. And all this family of Jews from all over the world who are saying, if you want, you're part of us, you're part of our family. And of course, there is a state which is ready to send airplanes to the end of the world, but to help you. And that, when you discover your identity, your connection with this land, suddenly it gives you a lot of strength to start fighting for your rights, for rights of the other Jews, and then for the rights, for the freedom of all the world. So there is very powerful thing in this connection, a Jewish connection with this land. And now I have to say why I am at all was interested to receive an invitation to participate in the conference about indigenous people. After all, it was never my profession. But what's happened in well, for many years already, I'm dealing with the problem of anti-Semitism. I was dealing with the problem of anti-Semitism 20 years ago in the government of Israel, and then as the head of Jewish agency. We had all the time to, well, when we saw how anti-Zionism becomes anti-Semitic, we had to prove that that is really anti-Semitism, what is said about Israel. And I proposed 3D criteria and a lot of things and a lot of discussions about how to fight anti-Semitism. And in fact, only 20 years ago, I remember at the times of Yasser Arafat's controlling Bethlehem, there was, Yasser Arafat, somebody of his people, made like a joke, and it was a cartoon, that the first Palestinian who was killed by Jews was Jesus Christ. And that was very actively used in their propaganda, and with every year, Bethlehem was becoming less and less Christian, you know, from the 1903, when Palestinian authorities established control over Bethlehem, it was all Christian. With every year now, it's almost all non-Christian. But this perception that Christians are the first Palestinians killed by Jews somehow was used by our enemies, and I really was not very much concerned about it, because after all, these are enemies, they're inventing all types of nonsense. It's really not, that's not our big challenge. And when later the Hamas and terrorists are using the slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, okay, it's our enemies, those who want to destroy Israel, so it's very obvious. What happened in the last year, that the slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, became the most popular slogan of the progressive movements of students in the American universities. And as the one, I and Gil, we identified 20 years ago that American universities is a major battleground against anti-Semitism. But we were not prepared to the fact that so easily a liberal world, which is not denying the right of Israel to exist, which maybe demands from us impossible things, impossible compromises with the terrorists, but never denied our right to exist, are using this slogan. And when asked and when challenged again and again in many universities that how can you support the slogan, which in fact means that the state of Israel should not exist? The answer is no. Colony should not exist. Colonialism is something that belongs to the past. The Zionist project is colonial project. Let the Jews and the Arabs and everybody in Palestine live together, but there should be no colony. Because read, and they say, professors explain to us, read Ben-Gurion, read Balfour, read Churchill, and you'll see that it was all planned as colonial project. They were indigenous people, Palestinians, and then it was decided that that is in the interest of British colony. That's how Balfour explains. It is in the interest of our colony to send their people and to turn it into their land. So it's exactly as it was in Australia and many other places. But there is no place for colonies today. So Palestinians should be relieved from this colonial rule. And then it becomes clear how it is important, what is so obvious for us, that yes, that we are real indigenous people of Palestine. We always kept this connection for thousands of years. In fact, never in our minds, in our faith, in our religion, and physically, never left this land. That it cannot be a colonial project. And that's why this, from almost theoretical or exotical question, became the most important question. If Jewish student in the university doesn't know how to answer on the question that it is colonial project, then we have a problem. And definitely we all have to learn, to study, and to teach about it. What is the connection between Jews and this land? Thank you. Now I'll ask Gil to make his presentation.
I'm not sure. Just a minute. Just a minute, I've just got something to share here. We're just going to bring up on the screen a photograph from the 1970s of New Zealand women in Auckland, New Zealand, who are part of an international organisation called the 35s, also known as the Women's Campaign for Soviet Jewry. This group formed in 1971 in honour of a 35-year-old Jewish woman, Riza Palatnik, who'd been imprisoned in isolation in Odessa. And in response, a group of 35 British women around the age of 35 gathered outside the Soviet consulate in the United Kingdom, dressed in black, and called for Palatnik's release. This was the beginning of a women's activist organisation that advocated on behalf of Soviet Jewish prisoners of conscience and refuseniks, those denied permission to immigrate and persecuted for seeking to do so. The 35s expanded to 9 different countries spanning both sides of the Atlantic. As well as street protests, the New Zealand branch of the 35s kept up a letter-writing campaign. They believed that if the prisoners were in receipt of hundreds of personalised letters a week, the authorities would take note and realise the degree of concern for these prisoners. So from this photo, and I don't know if there's 2 of them, but maybe we'll just see the one. I think you get the picture. Most of these women are still with us and remember that day very clearly. And they have passed on the message to Natan that they've watched with pride your success and impact on Israel and the diaspora, and they send their greeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was pleasant to see this picture. I can say that 35, and it was just described how it was organized, became the most activist organization, first of all in London, or in Britain, in Canada, but also, as we now see, also in New Zealand. And my wife was on numerous demonstrations for 35s, and she was spending nights in many houses of the women of 35s all over the world. So it was a great organization, and great to hear that our friends in New Zealand are still among them. Thank you.
And this is a small gift from New Zealand. This is a New Zealand greenstone, and you can rest it on your desk. So I'll just put it there.
Thank you.
Pardon?
No, well, you'll come to the question. I'll be back after Gil, yeah? Okay.